Let's take a look at the figures around rents reported to the end of February 2020. Now, this doesn't take into account what might have happened with rents over the last couple of weeks, and a bit like house prices are probably going through a period of not necessarily a drop, but probably a stagnation in terms of transaction volumes and things like that due to what's going on with the coronavirus in the UK right now. At this stage, I don't think there's any significant downward pressure on rents, but there probably is a situation where, right as things stand at the moment, there probably won't be a whole lot of new tenancies agreed in the immediate term, just because with all the measures around social distancing and social isolation, it's very difficult for the normal business of renting to go on with viewings and check-ins and check-outs and those kind of things there in the current marketplace at the moment. But if we have a look at what happened with rents to the end of February this year, and information that's come from HomeLet, their regular rental market survey, well, we've still got very strong growth in terms of rents year on year. We're 1.6% up. The rate of growth seems to have slowed down a little bit versus the last 6 months of last year, but still very much in positive territory overall. Regionally, we've got a number of regions showing above that figure in terms of growth, notably being Wales, Northern Ireland, the East Midlands and the Northwest, at a little bit slower levels of growth, but still very much in positive territory. The West Midlands, Yorkshire and the Humber and Scotland. Then we're down a little bit in the Southwest, the Southeast and the Northeast, but remembering that towards the end of last year, pretty much every region in the UK was showing above average rental increases. So not surprising that there's a little bit of flattening out at this stage. What's driving the rental market? Well, we still have very much the same drivers. This comes down to supply and demand overall. We've got a situation right now with a number of landlords who've exited the market over the last 2, 3, 4 years to do with changes to mortgage interest rate relief rules that caused a lot of landlords to assess their portfolios, especially those who had significant portfolios in their personal name and may have had large taxable incomes elsewhere as well. We had the tenant fee ban last year and we saw a big spike in the number of landlords exiting the market because of the tenant fee ban and a corresponding upward pressure in terms of rents in most parts of the UK as well. And then we've got some other issues that are kind of causing some older landlords to think about what they're doing in the marketplace. Also some accidental landlords or landlords who had maybe 1 or 2 buy-to-lets as a pension pot, looking at a lot of the legislation around health and safety, around how tenants are taken care of, additional licensing schemes. All of these have resulted in a reduction in the amount of rental stock available in the marketplace, and that's translating through to an increase in rents. Now, there's a lot of things in the news at the moment about the potential impact of coronavirus or COVID-19 on renting. And that may have a short-term impact, especially with some tenants' abilities to pay. Because ultimately, if your tenant who's in the property loses a job, that may impact their ability to pay. And there's been a lot of government measures announced over the last week around trying to be fair to tenants and giving them potentially some leeway in terms of payments and a cut to any evictions for the next 3 months. Equally, there's also been an announcement that there will be some protections for landlords as well, with pressure on the banks to give kind of payment holidays and things like that if the tenant's not paying the rent. But what I don't think this will do in the short or the long term is produce any real downward pressure on rents. And the reason for that is we might be in a situation where there may be some difficulty short term with cash flow and payment, but we've still got the same issues in the UK overall around the availability of rental stock, but the number of tenants chasing that rental stock. And you can only think that this problem will exacerbate over the coming months, because I imagine that a lot of the shutdown we're seeing in business in the UK and the slowdown in business in the UK because of measures the government has introduced will have a knock-on effect to things like the construction industry and new stock coming online for the rental market as well. So we're still going to have this kind of supply and demand imbalance, probably very much in favour of landlords. So I think rents will continue to rise as it stands at the moment. just make sure that you are planning within your portfolio potentially for some interruption to payments in the short term, especially if you have tenants who may be in the hospitality industry, anything affected by aviation. These are or the travel and tourism industry. These are the industries which are going to be really hard hit by the measures around social isolation. But rents definitely in positive territory. We will look to see what happens in the coming weeks, whether there is any wobble in the marketplace in terms of rents. But like I say, I don't expect that rents will go down. It may just be a situation that there are some payment issues, and potentially if you do have any properties right now that are empty, it may be more difficult to get a new tenancy agreed just in the current marketplace, because it's very difficult for lettings agents to do their job overall with some of these restrictions in place.